Hole in the Woods, Chapter 26, Riley St. James. The next morning, I drive to Chicago to see Laura Riggins, Nina's best friend from high school. The building landscape of the Chicago skyline comes into view as I crest the I-90 Skyway overpass that snakes along the gray, grimy industrial shore from Gary into the Windy City. It feels good to be in a big city again. I like how the city looks restful and full of possibility from this distance. I only hope it yields some clue about the night Nina disappeared. I'd spent my entire 4-hour drive from Derby to Chicago in silence, thinking about Laura Riggins. Her name hadn't drawn out any significance the first couple times I saw it. Laura had kind of slipped off the police radar fast. She wasn't with Nina that night. She was never connected to anyone suspected of Nina's death. It wasn't until I put myself in Laura's shoes that I realized how devastating Nina's death would have been to her. Laura was Nina's best friend from childhood. They had met at church Sunday school and stayed friends through grade school, junior high, and high school. They couldn't have been more opposite. Laura came from a stable 2-parent family of 6, upper middle income. She was the happy-go-lucky, blonde, blue-eyed cheerleader type. A quick Google search and a brief phone call had revealed that Laura and her husband lived in the Loop, both working as financial advisors. I called. Yes, Laura thinks about Nina a lot. Yes, she will answer some questions. Did they have any new leads? Working on it. I can come to Chicago and meet you in person to speak about it. Of course, was her instant email reply. The trek into the Loop from the I-90 skyline during the morning rush hour takes me almost 2 hours. I find the address to the high-rise and pull up to the valet. Are you here for a guest? Asks a graying, genteel African-American valet. I am. Laura Riggins? She hadn't changed her name after she married. For professional reasons, I assume. Your name, miss? Riley St. James. The valet checks his iPad and finds my name on the register. Welcome, Ms. St. James. Ms. Riggins is on the 14th floor, apartment 1407. I start to turn off the car. Keep it running and I'll park it for you. Thank you. I'm a touch embarrassed by my lack of big city protocol, but hey, it's not every day I use valet services. I don't run in those circles in Detroit. The valet hands me a receipt and I wonder if I'm supposed to tip him. He answers my thought with a smile and points me in the direction of the front entrance, where a doorman opens the golden gilded front door. Fancy. And to think, Laura's journey took her from the Merry Market in Derby to Michigan Avenue, Chicago. Not a bad climb for a small-town girl. As the elevator doors close, I feel underdressed in my jeans, jacket, and running shoes. I'm soon engaged in an awkward silence with a velvet-suited lift operator who hovers by the buttons so I can't press them myself. Which floor, ma'am? He asks. Oh, yeah, 14th, please. Missed protocol again. I exit the elevator into a soundproofed hallway and check the placard on the wall that points me left to suites 1400 through 1410. My fist is about to rap on the door of suite 1407 when Laura opens the door with a friendly smile. The Windy City hasn't stolen Laura's small-town charm, and she and her husband Richard make me feel right at home. I shed my shoes at the door and they hand me a pair of fuzzy slippers that massage my drive-tired feet. Can I get you something to drink? Beer, wine, gin and tonic? Richard says, showing me into the living room. It's just after lunchtime, a little early for a cocktail, I muse. Water, please, I manage to say as my attention is engulfed in the expansive view of the city and Lake Michigan spread across floor-to-ceiling windows of their open concept condo. Sparkling or still, says Richard. Sparkling is fine. Richard heads to the kitchen fortress of black marble and stainless steel. It's so spotless and well-stocked. Le Creuset cookware hangs from the wire rack above a butcher block island. I bet they're one of those couples who don't even cook. Thank you for driving all the way down here. You know, I would have been happy just to answer your questions over the phone. Laura is wearing the same fuzzy slippers with her pencil skirt and silk blouse. I know, but I think talking face-to-face is more personal, especially about such a sensitive topic. And let me tell you, this view is worth the drive. I want to make her feel comfortable with me. Thank you. We love it. Bought it 6 years ago. Got tired of commuting from the suburbs. Richard returns with 2 glasses of water topped with slices of lemon and a goblet of red wine for himself. They take a seat on the white leather sofa, and I take a seat in an oversized chair with fur pillows opposite them. I'm sorry to have to drag you through all this again, I start. It's okay. My mom says the whole town is talking about you and how you're going to break this case and finally put those Newton twins behind bars. I'm trying my best, I say. That's all I ever wanted for Nina. That's all I ever wanted for Nina, so I'm happy to help. I take a sip of the cool, lemony water. It's silky and refreshing. Geez, even their water has expensive taste. Do you have some new evidence? I mean, there have been a lot of advances in DNA since 1989. Did something new show up? Unfortunately, not. We are trying to go over the statements again. Fresh eyes. Doesn't sound like a lot to go on, Richard says. If you don't mind, I'll just dive right in. I've read through your statement several times, I say. Yes, and I reread what you sent me, my statement, that is. I sound like such an idiot. You were 17. I'm sure it was kind of scary. I was scared shitless. She takes a sip of her drink. How does the statement look to you? Is it how you recalled the events of that night? I ask her. Yes, I'd say everything is exactly how I remembered it, except I got to thinking more about that night. Oh? I don't know. Maybe I didn't say it, or maybe they didn't write it down. I don't know why it's not there. The one thing is, I remember I went to Nina's house a 3rd time that night. You did? Immediately, I think of Ray and the issue of Legend. Yes, I did. After the 12:30 visit. Yes, I dropped my friend off at her house and then I went home, but I couldn't sleep. I wanted Nina to get that job so badly. So I got up and drove back to her house to leave her a note to come to the market at 9 the next morning. Okay, do you remember what time that was? Yes, I left my house just before 2 a.m. I remember looking at my alarm clock and thinking I only had a few hours before I had to be up for work at 8. I nod. And what did you find when you got to Nina's house? Same things. Dark, dog barking, door unlocked, but no signs of Nina. She wasn't home. She wasn't home. You're sure? I'm sure, because I was shouting for her and pounding on the door, and the neighbor lady stuck her head out of the window and told me to shut up. That's odd. In all the statements given from Silas and Solomon, they claim they dropped Nina at her home around 12:30 a.m. If that were true, she should have been home. She would have heard her best friend knocking and shouting, Tucker barking, a neighbor lady yelling. So the 3rd time you went to Nina's house was 2 a.m., I clarify. Yes, and she wasn't there. No, I'm positive. She wasn't sleeping. I finally went inside and up to her room. She wasn't there. She wasn't sleeping in the living room couch or... No, those monsters had her out there in the woods. I know they did. Laura chokes up on her words and rises from the couch. She crosses to the window, taking small sips of her lemon water as she composes herself. Richard rises from the couch and takes her glass to top it off. So you went to Nina's 3 times that night. I have to be 100% certain I am understanding Laura's statement. This will definitely be questioned in court. Laura nods. Any idea why you only thought of that recently? I ask with a touch of scrutiny. I don't know. I didn't mean to. I did my best to remember when the cops questioned me. I don't know. I was 17. I guess I just didn't remember, and I was sad and scared. Sad, I understand. Scared? What of? Maybe that I would be next, she says. Were you afraid they would go after you? They knew I was friends with Nina. Solomon had even asked me out once. He did. I said no, Laura snaps. And you're sure you're remembering the timeline correctly now? I am positive. I remember because the 3rd time I went alone and that lady yelled at me. And you're willing to testify to this? Laura nods. Those monsters had concocted an alibi, a shared story, and they had stuck to it solid and steadfast for 30 years. No one had been able to challenge it. But this small detail, was significant. The issue of legend was proving fruitful, a crack in the code of silence. I wish I could have done something to help her, Laura says, turning to me and looking more like the sorry 17-year-old Mary market cashier of Derby than the 47-year-old financial princess of Michigan Avenue. You just did, I tell her. You just did.